Chronic inflammation is the silent saboteur of weight loss. You can't see it, you can't feel it in the obvious sense, but it is there, simmering away beneath the surface, interfering with your biochemistry every single day. This isn't about eating too much or exercising too little. It's not a matter of willpower or discipline. It's about how your cells function. When inflammation becomes chronic, when the immune system is constantly triggered, your body shifts into survival mode. Hormones like insulin and cortisol rise, signaling your body to store rather than burn. The enzymes that normally release fat from storage are blocked, and energy that should be fueling your muscles becomes trapped in fat cells. You feel tired, sluggish, and hungry, even when you've eaten enough. The body is designed to burn fat efficiently when it's healthy, but inflammation changes that. It clogs up the metabolic machinery. Mitochondria, the little powerhouses inside every cell, become less efficient, producing less energy and more oxidative stress. The result, fat gets locked away and your metabolism slows to a crawl. You can be eating perfectly and still not lose weight because your body is biochemically blocked from doing so. This is why I always say, and don't blame yourself and don't count calories. The real issue lies deeper within the inflammatory processes that distort your hormones and damage your energy systems. But here's the hopeful truth. Inflammation is reversible. By identifying what's driving it, whether it's poor diet, hidden gut infections, toxic exposures, or chronic stress, you can calm the immune system, repair the biochemistry, and switch your body back to its natural fat burning mode. Once you remove the sources of inflammation, the body does exactly what it's meant to do: heal, restore balance, and burn fat effortlessly. Inflammation is the body's natural defense mechanism. It's the way your immune system responds to injury, infection, or threat. In the short term, this process is essential. It's what heals wounds, destroys pathogens, and restores balance. But when inflammation becomes chronic, that same defense system turns against you. It becomes the hidden fire smoldering inside your tissues, quietly disrupting normal physiology and sabotaging your efforts to burn fat. Chronic inflammation means the immune system never switches off. Instead of returning to a state of rest, it continues releasing inflammatory molecules, cytokines, free radicals, and prostaglandins that signal danger even when none exists. This constant immune activation alters how your cells communicate. Normally, your body runs on precise biochemical signaling, hormones, enzymes, and messengers that work together to regulate energy use and storage. But inflammation scrambles these signals. It interferes with the function of insulin, the hormone that tells your cells to absorb glucose for energy. When inflammatory cytokines block insulin's message, the body becomes resistant to it. Glucose then remains in the bloodstream, forcing the pancreas to release more insulin. High insulin levels promote fat storage, especially around the abdomen, and prevent fat from being released for energy. This is the biochemical reason why so many people struggle to lose weight even when they're eating well. Their cells are simply not listening to hormonal instructions because inflammation has disrupted the conversation. At the cellular level, the damage goes even deeper. Every cell in your body contains mitochondria, tiny power plants that turn food into energy. Mitochondria are exquisitely sensitive to inflammation. When they're exposed to constant oxidative stress, they begin to malfunction. Instead of producing clean energy in the form of ATP, they start leaking reactive oxygen species, toxic molecules that further inflame the cell. It's a vicious circle. Inflammation damages mitochondria. Damaged mitochondria create more inflammation. And because mitochondria are responsible for energy production, this damage translates directly into fatigue, poor recovery, and reduced metabolic output. You literally lose the ability to burn energy efficiently. Two key hormones, leptin and adiponectin, are also heavily impacted by chronic inflammation. Leptin, produced by fat cells, normally tells your brain when you've had enough to eat. But in an inflamed body, leptin signaling is blunted. This leads to leptin resistance, where your brain no longer receives the "I'm full" message, and you continue feeling hungry even when you have plenty of stored fat. Adiponectin, on the other hand, promotes fat burning and insulin sensitivity. Inflammation suppresses its production, making it harder to mobilize fat stores. The result is a body that's metabolically confused, always hungry, never satisfied, and unable to burn its own reserves of energy. Inflammation also disrupts neurotransmitters and stress hormones. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, is often elevated when the immune system is chronically active. While cortisol initially helps control inflammation, long-term elevation has the opposite effect. It promotes muscle breakdown, raises blood sugar, and further contributes to fat accumulation around the middle. Meanwhile, low-grade inflammation in the brain affects serotonin and dopamine pathways, driving cravings for quick energy, sugary foods, caffeine, refined carbohydrates. These substances give a temporary sense of relief, but ultimately worsen the inflammatory cycle. You experience energy crashes, mood swings, and constant hunger because your biochemistry is out of sync. This is why, when I see patients struggling with stubborn weight, I don't start with calories or exercise routines. I start with inflammation, because when the immune system is stuck in on mode, the entire metabolic system becomes locked in survival gear. In this state, the body prioritizes defense, not energy efficiency. It hoards resources instead of burning them. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes perfect sense. During times of perceived danger, storing energy was protective. But in the modern world, where the triggers are not predators but processed foods, environmental toxins, chronic infections, and psychological stress, that same mechanism backfires. The key is understanding that the real obstacle to fat loss isn't a lack of willpower. It's a physiological state driven by biochemical chaos. You can't force your body to lose weight when it's inflamed any more than you can drive a car with the handbrake on. You must first calm the immune system, restore cellular communication, and repair mitochondrial function. Once inflammation subsides, hormones rebalance naturally, energy levels rise, and fat burning resumes, not because you're trying harder, but because your body is finally able to function as it was designed to. When we view weight loss through this biochemical lens, everything changes. Instead of punishment and restriction, it becomes about restoration and repair. You're not fighting your body, you're healing it. When the fire of chronic inflammation is extinguished, metabolism comes back online. Fat burning isn't forced, it becomes effortless, the natural byproduct of a body that's no longer defending itself but thriving again. Visceral fat is not just a passive storehouse of calories. It's an active, living tissue that behaves more like a gland than a storage depot. It wraps around vital organs, the liver, intestines, pancreas, and constantly releases chemical messengers into the bloodstream. In small amounts, this is normal. But when visceral fat builds up, it becomes a major source of inflammation itself. It secretes cytokines, inflammatory molecules like TNF-alpha and interleukin-6, that signal to the immune system that something is wrong. The immune system responds by sending out more inflammatory compounds, and a vicious circle begins. Inflammation creates visceral fat, and visceral fat feeds back more inflammation. Think of it as an engine clogged with soot. The more soot that builds up, the less efficiently the engine runs, and the more soot it produces in return. That's exactly what happens in the body when inflammation and visceral fat feed one another. Over time, the metabolic machinery becomes sluggish and inefficient. Instead of cleanly burning fuel for energy, the body stores it, creating even more fat around the organs. This internal environment keeps the body in a constant state of alarm. The liver is particularly affected. It's meant to be your main metabolic processor, clearing toxins, balancing hormones, and managing blood sugar. But when surrounded by inflamed visceral fat, it becomes congested. Fatty deposits begin to build within it, leading to what's called fatty liver. A sluggish liver can't regulate insulin properly, and blood sugar swings become common. The pancreas has to work overtime to release more insulin, which drives even more fat storage. Insulin's job is to store energy, not burn it. And as insulin levels rise, fat breakdown is suppressed. You can think of high insulin as a closed gate. No matter how hard you try, stored fat cannot leave the cell to be used as energy. Meanwhile, cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, enters the picture. Chronic inflammation signals the adrenal glands to produce more cortisol to keep the immune system in check. In the short term, that's helpful, but when cortisol stays high for weeks or months, it becomes destructive. Elevated cortisol tells the body to conserve energy and store fat, particularly around the midsection. This is why so many people with chronic stress or inflammation develop abdominal fat that seems impossible to lose. Cortisol also breaks down muscle tissue to create glucose, raising blood sugar even further and worsening insulin resistance. Over time, this combination of high insulin and high cortisol locks the metabolism into fat storage mode. Inflammation also interferes with the thyroid, the gland that sets your metabolic rate. Inflammatory cytokines slow the conversion of T4, the inactive thyroid hormone, into T3, the active form that drives energy production. This creates a kind of metabolic slowdown. Your engine idles lower, body temperature drops, and fat burning slows dramatically. You might feel fatigued, cold, or mentally foggy, all classic signs of sluggish thyroid function. And because inflammation also damages cell receptors, even the thyroid hormones that are present can't communicate effectively with your cells. The result is metabolic inertia. Your body wants to conserve energy, not release it. The hormonal disruption doesn't stop there. In women, inflammation alters estrogen and progesterone balance, often leading to fluid retention, cravings, and further fat accumulation. In men, it suppresses testosterone production, reducing muscle mass and slowing metabolic rate even more. The combined effect is a body that's biochemically programmed to store fat, not burn it. To make matters worse, the presence of visceral fat around vital organs creates local hypoxia, a lack of oxygen in those tissues. When cells don't get enough oxygen, they switch to a less efficient way of producing energy, generating even more oxidative stress and inflammatory byproducts. It's like running your car engine without proper airflow. It runs hotter, less efficiently, and produces more smoke. This internal metabolic smoke further damages mitochondria and cell membranes, deepening the cycle of inflammation and dysfunction. People often assume that losing weight is purely about calorie balance, but what's really happening inside an inflamed body is far more complex. The hormones that should guide energy use, insulin, cortisol, thyroid, leptin, are all sending the wrong signals because the biochemical environment is distorted. Your body isn't ignoring your efforts, it's protecting itself. It's stuck in survival mode, clinging to fat as a safeguard against ongoing internal stress. Once inflammation calms, this hormonal chaos begins to settle. Cortisol levels normalize, insulin sensitivity improves, and the thyroid wakes up again. Fat cells stop sending inflammatory messages, and visceral fat begins to melt away because the body no longer perceives a threat. The soot clears from the engine, and metabolism begins to hum smoothly once more. Energy becomes available, cravings ease, and the body naturally shifts back into a fat-burning rhythm. Not through force, but through restored biochemical harmony. Hidden inflammation doesn't appear overnight. It builds quietly over months and years, often fueled by small daily habits that seem harmless on the surface. Each of these triggers feeds the immune system's constant state of alert. When we understand what's driving the inflammation, we can start to remove the sources and allow the body to recover its natural rhythm. The most common culprits are right in front of us, in the foods we eat, the air we breathe, and the way we live our lives. Refined sugars are one of the biggest offenders. Every time you consume them, blood sugar spikes rapidly. Insulin is released to bring those levels down, but if this happens repeatedly, the cells stop responding properly. Excess glucose reacts with proteins in a process called glycation, which produces inflammatory byproducts and oxidative stress. Over time, this damages the blood vessels and mitochondria, slowing metabolism and draining energy. The immune system sees this damage as a threat and responds with inflammation. It becomes a continuous loop. Sugar causes oxidative stress. Oxidative stress triggers inflammation, and inflammation worsens insulin resistance. Next come processed seed oils, those found in most packaged and fried foods. Oils like soybean, sunflower, corn, and canola are high in omega-6 fatty acids, which in excess are highly pro-inflammatory. The human body needs a balance between omega-3 and omega-6 fats to keep inflammation under control. Modern diets, however, have pushed this ratio far out of balance. These unstable oils oxidize easily when heated, producing toxic compounds that damage cell membranes. Once the membranes become rigid and inflamed, hormones and nutrients can no longer move efficiently in and out of the cell, and mitochondrial function drops. The body becomes sluggish, energy declines, and fat burning slows dramatically. Gluten is another trigger for many people, even those without celiac disease. It can increase intestinal permeability, often called leaky gut, allowing fragments of undigested food and bacterial toxins to escape into the bloodstream. The immune system immediately reacts to these invaders, setting off widespread inflammation. This is not just a gut problem, it becomes a whole body issue. The inflammatory molecules travel through the bloodstream, affecting joints, skin, brain, and metabolism. For some, gluten can be the silent spark that keeps inflammation smoldering even when everything else appears in order. Poor sleep is another underestimated driver of inflammation. The body does most of its repair work at night when immune cells reset and mitochondria regenerate. When sleep is shortened or fragmented, cortisol levels remain elevated and inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein rise. This state of unrest sends mixed messages to the metabolism. Appetite hormones like ghrelin increase, making you crave more sugar and refined carbs the next day, while leptin, which signals fullness, drops. The result is a biochemical push to eat more, store more, and burn less. Chronic sleep deprivation doesn't just make you tired, it keeps your body trapped in a pro-inflammatory fat storing mode. Then there's chronic stress. The body is built to handle short bursts of stress, but modern life rarely offers a break. Persistent stress keeps cortisol high, which initially helps control inflammation but eventually backfires. Over time, the immune system becomes resistant to cortisol signals, allowing inflammation to rise unchecked. High cortisol also suppresses thyroid function, reduces muscle mass, and encourages visceral fat accumulation. You can think of it as living with the accelerator and the brake pressed down at the same time. Energy systems strain under pressure, but nothing moves forward. Environmental toxins are the hidden layer few people think about. We're exposed daily to pesticides, plastics, air pollution, heavy metals, and household chemicals. These substances accumulate in the body and interfere with mitochondrial enzymes and hormonal receptors. The liver works hard to detoxify them, but if the exposure is constant, it becomes overwhelmed. The result is systemic oxidative stress, the same chemistry that underpins chronic inflammation. This toxic burden slows metabolism, weakens immunity, and often shows up as fatigue, brain fog, or unexplained weight gain. The challenge is that these triggers often overlap, amplifying each other's effects. Sugar, poor sleep, and stress create a perfect storm for inflammation, while toxins and bad fats add to the metabolic load. The body becomes overwhelmed and the immune system never gets the message to stand down. That's why identifying your personal inflammatory triggers is so important. I encourage you to think like a detective. Begin by observing patterns. How do you feel after certain foods, late nights, or stressful weeks? Keep a simple journal. Try an elimination diet for 2 weeks. Remove sugars, processed oils, gluten, and alcohol. Then reintroduce them one at a time to see how your body reacts. Notice your energy, digestion, sleep, and mood. The body communicates through symptoms: bloating, fatigue, fogginess, irritability. These are all clues. When you start removing the inputs that keep inflammation alive, you'll often notice improvement within days. The truth is, the body cannot heal or burn fat effectively while these inflammatory signals are active. You can exercise, fast, or diet all you want, but if inflammation is constantly being triggered by what you eat or how you live, metabolism will remain blocked. Healing begins when the immune system stands down, when it no longer perceives daily life as a threat. Once you clear out these inflammatory inputs, the refined sugar, seed oils, gluten, sleep deprivation, stress, and toxins, you give your cells permission to recover. Energy returns, hormones rebalance, and the natural process of fat burning resumes effortlessly, just as the body was designed to do. Food is chemistry, and chemistry is what drives health. Every meal either fuels inflammation or quiets it. When you understand food through a biochemical lens, you begin to see it not as calories or comfort, but as molecular information, messages that tell your cells how to behave. The goal is simple: switch off the immune system's unnecessary alarm signals and give the body the raw materials it needs to heal and burn fat efficiently. That's what an anti-inflammatory diet does. It provides the nutrients, fats, and antioxidants that calm the immune system, repair cellular damage, and restore energy flow through the mitochondria. Let's start with fats, because they are central to hormonal and metabolic health. For years, people were told to fear fat, but the right fats are essential to reducing inflammation and supporting fat burning. Only fish such as salmon, sardines, and mackerel are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA, which directly counteract inflammatory cytokines. They help rebalance the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio that's often skewed by processed seed oils. These fats also make up the membranes of every cell, allowing hormones to bind and nutrients to pass through freely. When cell membranes are fluid and healthy, metabolism becomes efficient again. A simple way to apply this is to swap margarine and seed oils for extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, or real butter from grass-fed animals. Olive oil, in particular, is rich in polyphenols that act as natural antioxidants, protecting the heart and lowering inflammatory markers throughout the body. Vegetables form the backbone of the anti-inflammatory blueprint. Cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, kale, cauliflower, and cabbage contain sulfur compounds that activate the body's detoxification enzymes. These compounds help the liver neutralize and eliminate inflammatory toxins and excess hormones. They also provide fiber, which feeds the beneficial bacteria in the gut. A healthy microbiome produces short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which directly reduce inflammation in the intestinal wall and improve insulin sensitivity. When the gut is calm and well-fed, systemic inflammation drops dramatically. Berries are another powerful ally. They're packed with polyphenols and anthocyanins, natural plant compounds that protect cells from oxidative stress. Blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries not only taste sweet, but actually stabilize blood sugar instead of spiking it. They protect mitochondria, improve endothelial function, and enhance the body's ability to use fat for energy. Green tea works in a similar way. Its catechins, particularly EGCG, suppress inflammatory gene expression and support fat oxidation. A few cups a day can make a measurable difference in metabolic health. Turmeric deserves a special mention because it's one of nature's most potent anti-inflammatories. Its active compound, curcumin, downregulates NF-κB, the master switch for inflammation inside cells. Used regularly, turmeric helps calm chronic immune activation, protect the liver, and improve joint health. Pairing it with black pepper increases its absorption. You can use it in curries, soups, or as a daily supplement if needed. Nuts and seeds also play an important role. Almonds, walnuts, chia seeds, and flax seeds provide healthy fats, magnesium, and antioxidants that stabilize blood sugar and improve insulin sensitivity. They are nutrient-dense, meaning a small handful delivers minerals, vitamins, and fiber without the inflammatory load of processed snacks. Again, the logic is simple. When you feed your body high-quality building blocks, it functions smoothly. When you feed it processed, nutrient-poor substances, it becomes inflamed and sluggish. The key to applying this blueprint is to make simple, sustainable swaps. Replace refined carbohydrates like white bread, pastries, and pasta with whole, natural sources of energy such as root vegetables, quinoa, and legumes. These provide slow-release carbohydrates and fiber that support gut health rather than triggering insulin spikes. Swap out breakfast cereals for eggs and vegetables, sugary snacks for a handful of nuts or a piece of fruit, and processed oils for natural fats. Each of these choices sends an anti-inflammatory signal to the body. Over time, those signals add up to a profound shift in metabolism. Think of food as medicine, the most accessible and powerful form of therapy available. Every bite you take can either fuel the inflammatory fire or help extinguish it. The body is constantly rebuilding itself, cell by cell, using the nutrients you provide. Within weeks of eating this way, people often notice clearer thinking, steadier energy, better sleep, and gradual fat loss. Not because they're restricting calories, but because they've restored biochemical balance. Nutrient density is the guiding principle here. Choose foods as close to their natural state as possible. Fresh vegetables, good fats, high quality protein, and whole fruits. Avoid anything that comes with a label you can't pronounce. When your diet consists of real, unprocessed foods, inflammation naturally subsides. Hormones recalibrate. Mitochondria produce clean energy and fat burning becomes effortless again. The anti-inflammatory diet isn't about deprivation, it's about nourishment. When the immune system is calm and cells are well fed, the body no longer needs to hold on to fat for protection. Instead, it returns to its natural, efficient, fat-burning state, a state of true metabolic health and vitality. The gut is at the center of inflammation. It's where your immune system, metabolism, and nervous system meet. In fact, around 70% of your immune cells are located in the lining of the gut, constantly monitoring what comes in and deciding what belongs and what doesn't. When this barrier becomes damaged, the immune system becomes confused. It begins to see harmless food particles and gut microbes as invaders, triggering inflammation that spreads throughout the body. This process, often called leaky gut or increased intestinal permeability, is one of the most overlooked root causes of chronic inflammation and stubborn fat storage. Under normal conditions, the gut lining is like a fine mesh, selectively allowing nutrients to pass into the bloodstream while keeping out toxins and bacteria. But diets high in processed foods, gluten, alcohol, and chemical additives can weaken these tight junctions between cells. When that happens, bacterial fragments and undigested proteins leak into the bloodstream. The immune system reacts instantly, releasing cytokines to fight what it perceives as infection. These cytokines travel throughout the body, igniting inflammation in tissues far beyond the gut, the brain, joints, liver, and even fat cells. This constant immune activity not only damages tissues, but also slows metabolism. The body shifts into defense mode, storing fat as a protective response. The microbes that live in the gut, trillions of bacteria, yeasts, and other microorganisms, also play a critical role. In a balanced state, this microbiome keeps the gut lining intact, regulates appetite, and produces short-chain fatty acids that reduce inflammation. But when the balance shifts from antibiotics, poor diet, or stress, harmful bacteria take over. These microbes produce toxins called endotoxins, which irritate the intestinal wall and promote systemic inflammation. This is the beginning of the gut inflammation-fat connection. A disrupted microbiome leads to a leaky gut, which leads to inflammation, which leads to hormonal and metabolic dysfunction. Repairing this system begins with feeding the right bacteria and starving the wrong ones. That means eliminating processed sugars and refined carbohydrates that feed harmful microbes and introducing foods that nourish beneficial ones. Prebiotic fibers found in foods like onions, garlic, leeks, asparagus, and green bananas act as fertilizer for good bacteria. They help these beneficial species grow and produce anti-inflammatory compounds that strengthen the gut barrier. Probiotic foods add live, friendly bacteria directly into the digestive tract. Fermented vegetables like sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, and yogurt are excellent sources. They help restore balance, improve digestion, and lower immune activation throughout the body. Bone broth is another powerful ally in gut repair. It contains collagen, glycine, and glutamine, amino acids that help rebuild the gut lining and soothe inflammation. These nutrients act as building blocks for the cells that line the intestinal wall, helping to tighten those leaky junctions and restore integrity. When the gut barrier heals, fewer toxins enter the bloodstream, the immune system can finally stand down, and inflammation begins to fall rapidly. The benefits of repairing the gut go far beyond digestion. When inflammation drops, insulin sensitivity improves, meaning your cells can once again respond properly to insulin's message to burn energy rather than store it. Blood sugar becomes stable, cravings for sugar and processed foods fade, and energy levels rise steadily throughout the day. Many people notice that once they begin restoring their gut health, weight loss becomes almost effortless. They are no longer fighting against their own biology, they are working with it. A healthy microbiome also influences the production of key neurotransmitters like serotonin and GABA, which support mood and calm the nervous system. This helps reduce stress-driven cortisol spikes, another driver of inflammation and belly fat. It's remarkable how closely the gut and brain communicate. When one is inflamed, the other feels it. Restoring balance to the microbiome can therefore improve both mental clarity and metabolic stability at the same time. Practically, gut repair means returning to simple, whole, natural foods. Start by removing the irritants, processed sugars, seed oils, alcohol, gluten, and artificial additives. Replace them with anti-inflammatory, nutrient-dense foods, fresh vegetables, quality protein, good fats, and fermented foods. Drink plenty of filtered water and consider a daily dose of bone broth or a probiotic supplement if your digestion has been compromised. Consistency is key. The gut lining regenerates quickly when given the right conditions, often showing measurable improvements in just a few weeks. You can think of your gut as the foundation of the house. If that foundation is cracked, no matter how beautifully you decorate the rooms above, through diet, exercise, or supplements, the structure will remain unstable. Repairing the gut seals those cracks and gives your metabolism solid ground to rebuild. Once the immune system no longer perceives constant threat from the gut, inflammation subsides, energy production returns to normal, and fat stores begin to release. The process isn't about forcing weight loss. It's about restoring function. When the gut inflammation axis is repaired, the entire system begins to work harmoniously again. The liver processes toxins efficiently, the thyroid resumes normal output, mitochondria produce steady energy, and hormones like leptin and insulin regain their proper rhythm. The result is a body that feels lighter, more energized, and far less inflamed. Healing the gut is not a side project in fat loss. It's the foundation. Once that foundation is solid, the rest of the metabolic machinery falls into place naturally, and the body returns to what it was designed to do, maintain health balance and vitality through effortless natural fat burning. When it comes to restoring health and reawakening fat metabolism, lifestyle is the most powerful medicine of all. What you do day in and day out, how you sleep, move, eat, and manage stress determines the level of inflammation in your body more than any supplement or quick fix ever could. These choices speak directly to your biochemistry, shaping hormone balance, energy production, and cellular repair. When the right habits are in place, inflammation naturally subsides, mitochondria begin working efficiently again, and fat burning becomes an effortless byproduct of a well-functioning system. Sleep is the first pillar. The body performs most of its repair work at night when inflammatory markers drop and tissues regenerate. During deep sleep, the brain clears out toxins, the liver detoxifies, and the adrenal glands reset. Missing that restorative window, even a few nights a week, keeps cortisol high and the immune system overactive. Consistent, quality sleep, ideally 7 to 9 hours, is the simplest, most effective anti-inflammatory therapy available. Going to bed at the same time each night, avoiding blue light before bed, and keeping the room dark and cool all help to reinforce the body's natural circadian rhythm. When that rhythm is stable, metabolism becomes stable too. Fasting is another remarkable way to reduce inflammation and restore mitochondrial efficiency. Short daily fasts, such as a 14 to 16-hour overnight fast, give the body a break from digestion and allow it to focus on repair. During fasting, insulin levels drop, and the body begins to mobilize stored fat for energy. More importantly, fasting triggers a process called autophagy, the cellular cleanup mechanism that removes damaged proteins and mitochondria, replacing them with new, more efficient ones. This rejuvenates the energy factories of the cells and dramatically lowers oxidative stress. People often notice that once they begin gentle intermittent fasting, brain fog lifts, energy stabilizes, and fat loss accelerates, not because they are eating less, but because their cells are finally working properly again. Movement is equally important, not as punishment or calorie burning, but as metabolic stimulation. Daily physical activity acts like a natural anti-inflammatory signal. When muscles contract, they release myokines, healing molecules that help regulate immune function and insulin sensitivity. Even moderate exercise like brisk walking, cycling, or body weight training improves mitochondrial function and encourages fat to be used as fuel. The key is consistency, not intensity. A short walk after meals can significantly lower blood sugar spikes and reduce inflammatory stress. Regular movement tells the body it is safe and functional, not under threat. And in that state, it naturally shifts from storing fat to burning it. Stress management is perhaps the most underestimated part of the inflammation story. Chronic stress keeps cortisol elevated and pushes the body into perpetual fight or flight mode. In this state, the body prioritizes survival over repair, shunting energy toward immediate defense rather than long-term maintenance. Meditation, deep breathing, time in nature, and connection with others all help to deactivate this stress response. These are not luxuries, they are essential biological resets. Lowering cortisol allows insulin to normalize, the thyroid to function properly, and the immune system to calm down. When stress levels drop, inflammation follows, and the body can finally access stored fat for energy again. Hydration and oxygenation also play their parts. Proper hydration supports the liver and kidneys in flushing out inflammatory byproducts. Deep breathing and time outdoors increase oxygen delivery to cells, improving mitochondrial efficiency and mental clarity. Every breath of clean air and every sip of pure water is a small but significant message to your body. Conditions are safe, you can relax, you can burn energy freely. All of these habits work together to create an internal environment of repair and restoration. The most empowering truth is that fat loss is not the goal. It's the side effect of a body returning to balance. When inflammation drops, hormones realign naturally. Insulin sensitivity improves, cortisol stabilizes, and thyroid output normalizes. Mitochondria become efficient energy producers again, burning fat cleanly and steadily. What once felt like metabolic resistance begins to ease because the underlying chaos has been resolved. From a clinical perspective, this is what healing looks like. The numbers on the scale start to change only after the deeper processes have been corrected, sleep restored, gut repaired, inflammation silenced, and mitochondria revived. The focus shifts away from restriction and toward nourishment, movement, and rest. This is why so many people who stop dieting and start healing finally see their bodies respond. Lasting fat loss is not about willpower or deprivation. It's about restoring physiology. You are not broken or lazy. your biochemistry has been under siege from chronic inflammation. Once you remove that interference, your body does exactly what it's designed to do. It heals, balances, and burns energy efficiently. Every night of quality sleep, every real meal, every walk, and every moment of calm signals to your body that it can stand down, that the war is over. In that peace, energy rises, inflammation fades, and fat burning becomes effortless. This is not a quick fix. It's a return to normal human function where health, vitality, and metabolic freedom naturally follow.